Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Sciences, SOS, Master of Science, Zoology, MSc ZOO. Semester 2, MZOE 002 Animal Behavior and Animal Welfare Ethics. Block 1 Introduction to Animal Behavior, Concept and Evolution. Unit 1 An Evolutionary Approach to Animal Behavior. 1.1 Introduction. We will begin the first unit of the Animal Behavior and Animal Welfare Ethics course with the basics of animal behavior. The term animal behavior encompasses all the ways in which an animal reacts in response to the changes in its external or internal conditions. We will then discuss how the field of animal behavior came to be established as a scientific discipline. This will involve a quick glance at the early history of the scientific study of animal behavior and a concise account of some of the most important experiments that laid the foundation of this field. We will follow it up with a brief introduction to some of the common methodologies involved in the studies pertaining to this fascinating field. Further along in this unit, we will delve into the types and objectives of an animal's behavior. A closer look into the causal factors of behavior will help us distinguish between the proximate and ultimate causes of animal behavior. While doing so, we will discuss how behavior has adaptive value for the animal. We will also develop an understanding regarding the evolution of behavior through natural selection. Finally, we will ponder upon the benefits of studying animal behavior. In the next unit of this course, we will learn about the mechanisms underlying the various types of animal behavior. Objectives. Objectives. After studying this unit, you would be able to develop an understanding about what constitutes behavior, gain an insight into the history of the study of animal behavior, appreciate the basic ideas behind the early experiments regarding animal behavior, enumerate the most common strategies that can be employed to study an animal's behavior, and list the various types of animal behavior, discuss the objectives behind an animal's behavior. Comprehend the causes of animal behavior, and differentiate between the proximal and ultimate causes of behavior. Appreciate the fact that the behavioral traits of an animal are shaped by natural selection, and enumerate the advantages of studying animal behavior. 1.2 History of the study of animal behavior. Animal behavior encompasses all the actions and reactions of animals. In other words, it includes all the spontaneous activities shown in response to internal causal factors as well as the reactions elicited by external stimuli. Therefore, the term can be used to refer to a wide variety of activities such as eating, sleeping, mating, social interactions, self-grooming, parental care, etc. The scientific study of animal behavior is called ethology. Ethology receives input from a lot of scientific disciplines. Therefore, it involves a deeper appreciation and understanding of many other fields such as genetics, evolutionary biology, ecology, neurobiology, endocrinology, physiology, anatomy, population biology, developmental biology and sociobiology. Fig. 1.1. Fig. 1.1. Ethology incorporates information from a variety of different scientific fields. Look at the screen. Mankind has been fascinated by animals since prehistoric times as evidenced by the cave paintings depicting animals. The earliest of these cave paintings have been found on Sulawesi, an Indonesian island. This cave painting depicts a wild pig and is estimated to be about 45,500 years old. The fascinating thing about this is that some cave paintings illustrate common behavioral patterns of animals. An even deeper understanding of animal behavior is exemplified by the domestication of animals, such as dogs, horses, cattle, etc., by humans. Animal domestication started thousands of years ago, the earliest of which was the domestication of dogs about 30,000 years ago. Ever since that time, humans have successfully trained animals to perform a wide variety of tasks. Obviously, such trainings require a great deal of insight into various aspects of animal behavior. However, despite such a rich history, ethology as a scientific discipline is quite recent, with major breakthroughs happening only during the last 150 years or so. Sexual, social, communicative, investigative, shelter-seeking, maternal, allomimetic eliminative, feeding and maladaptive are among the top 10 types of ethology studies. Charles Darwin, 1809 to 1882, studied the elaborate mating dance of the male birds of paradise. In his famous book, On the Origin of Species published in 1859, he proposed that such elaborate behaviors were aimed at influencing the mate selection process of females. Thus, he hypothesized that by affecting mate choice, some behaviors can affect the gene pool and therefore play a role in evolution. Darwin also made interesting observations about the behavior of a large variety of animals, including humans. Given Darwin's popularity in the scientific community, his observations regarding behavior provided a much-needed boost to the scientific study of animal behavior. It is noteworthy that many ethologists made very significant contributions in the field of animal behavior. Some of the most revered ethologists include Ivan Pavlov, B. F. Skinner, Oscar Heinroth, Julian Huxley, William Thorpe, Robert Hind, Patrick Bateson, Nicolas Tinbergen, Konrad Lorenz, Carl von Frisch, E. O. Wilson, Jani Goodall, Robert Trivers, W. D. Hamilton and Dian Fossey. Now, let us look at some of the path-breaking experiments that led to development of ethology as a modern scientific discipline. Did you know, most of Pavlov's work was concerned with the physiology of digestion. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for his work in 1904. Pavlov's experiments demonstrating classical conditioning in 1897, Ivan Pavlov, Fig. 1.2, a Russian physiologist and psychologist, published the results of his experiments on dogs. Pavlov reported that his dogs exhibited excessive salivation at the sight of food, Fig. 1.3a. Such an unlearned response to a specific stimulus is called an unconditioned reflex. On the other hand, he noticed that the dogs did not salivate at the ringing of a bell, Fig. 1.3b. Thus, with respect to salivation, the food served as a physiological stimulus while ringing of the bell served as a neutral stimulus since it elicited no response. Later, Pavlov rang the bell each time the dogs were given food, Fig. 1.3c. After repeating this exercise for a few days, Pavlov noticed that the dogs had started to salivate by just listening to the ringing of the bell, Fig. 1.3d, which at the beginning of the experiment was established as a neutral stimulus. Thus, Pavlov showed that even a neutral stimulus, ringing of bell, can elicit a response, salivation, by itself. If the animal learns to associate it with a physiological stimulus, food, this phenomenon is known as classical conditioning, and the response thus generated against an otherwise neutral stimulus is known as a conditioned reflex. Besides revolutionizing the field of animal behavior, Pavlov's findings had far-reaching implications in the studies of human behavior and learning also. A reflex is an automatic and sudden response to a specific stimulus. Conditioning is a process by which an animal can be trained to react to a certain stimulus in a predictable manner. Von Frisch's experiments on bee dance in 1923, Carl von Frisch performed his first field experiment in order to study the social behavior of western honey bees. Using a clever strategy, Carl von Frisch was able to show that the foraging honey bees use a special bee dance to communicate to the other members of their colony that they have found a food source. Further, the foraging honey bees can also give cues about the quality of the food source to the other members of their hive. They do so by performing a dance, the energy and duration of which are directly proportional to the sweetness of the food source. This discovery was interesting by itself, but his most informative experiment was performed in 1943. In order to test if the honey bees could communicate distance as well as direction of the food source to their colony members, he installed two feeding stations, one close to the hive and the other farther away from the hive. He observed that the foraging honey bees arriving at the hive from a nearby feeding station performed round dance, which comprises short circular movements of the bee in the clockwise and anti-clockwise direction alternatively. This dance is much simpler and does not include information about the location of the food source. It is performed when the food source is only about 50 to 100 meters away from the beehive. On the other hand, the foraging honey bees returning from the food station that was farther away performed a more elaborate kind of dance which is called the tail wagging or waggle dance. This dance is more elaborate and more informative than the round dance. Waggle dance, Fig. 1.5, comprises movements in the shape of the figure 8. First, the honey bee moves forward along a straight path, the central stretch of the figure 8, by waggling, i.e., moving its abdomen quickly from side to side. Then, it veers to the side and returns to the starting point by following a semicircular path in a clockwise or anti-clockwise direction. Afterwards, it moves forward along the central stretch again and this time returns to the starting point by moving along another semicircular path in the opposite direction. The honeybee performs many such circuits by regularly alternating between clockwise and anti-clockwise directions along the semicircular path. Interestingly, the length of the central stretch of the figure 8 denotes the distance of the food source from the hive. On the other hand, the angle alpha, angle of the central stretch of the figure 8, relative to the vertical axis of the hive, denotes the direction of the food source relative to the sun. Thus, using the sun as a compass, the honey bees perform the waggle dance and thereby communicate the direction of the food to the other members of their hive. Fig. 1.5 Interpretation of waggle dance of honey bee. The length of the central stretch of the figure 8 denotes the distance of the food source. On an average, 1 second denotes 1 kilometer. The angle alpha, denotes the direction of the food source relative to the sun. Look at the screen. Skinner's experiments demonstrating operant conditioning in 1930, Burrus Frederick Skinner, Fig. 1.6, created a specific enclosure called an operant chamber to study learning behavior of animals. In Skinner's honor, the operant chamber created by him is also known as a Skinner box, Fig. 1.7. A typical Skinner box houses a single animal and is equipped with a lever, although many variations of the box are used depending on the experiment and the animal model. Skinner's research spanned many years, through which Skinner used various modifications of this operant chamber by pairing the pressing of the lever by the animal to a reward, food, or punishment, electric shock. Skinner discovered that a reward acts as a positive reinforcement for the animal. When this is repeated many times over, the animal starts pressing the lever with increased force and/or frequency. On the other hand, the electric shock acts as a positive punishment and eventually, the animal presses the lever with reduced force and/or frequency. Such a process that trains the animal to associate a particular behavior with a positive or negative consequence is known as operant conditioning. Fig. 1.7 Schematic representation of a Skinner box. Many variations of the Skinner box can be designed based on the nature of the experiment. Look at the screen. Lorenz's experiment demonstrating imprinting. Imprinting is a genetically programmed behavior shown by animals of some species during a critical period that occurs very early during their development. It refers to an attachment formed by a young animal to the first large moving object that they encounter. Using his famous experiment performed in 1935, Konrad Z. Lorenz, Fig. 1.8, demonstrated the phenomenon of imprinting. His experimental design was simple and effective. Lorenz took a batch of freshly fertilized eggs of greylag geese. Lorenz then divided these eggs into two groups, experimental and control. He designed the study such that immediately upon hatching, the first object that the goslings in the experimental group saw was him. On the other hand, the goslings from the control group saw their mother first, as is usually the case. It was hardly surprising then that the goslings from the control group followed the mother goose. Interestingly, the goslings from the experimental group, who had seen Lorenz upon hatching instead of their own mother, followed him around as if Lorenz was their mother. Lorenz extended this experiment further by putting all the goslings from both the groups together for a while under an upturned box. Upon removing the box, he observed that the goslings from the control group went to the mother goose while the goslings from the experimental group came to him. This observation led him to conclude that for the newly hatched goslings, it was a natural instinct to imprint on any large moving object that they saw upon hatching. Lorenz argued that such a behavior enabled the goslings to identify the members of their own species. Further, he hypothesized that imprinting was shaped by natural selection because the young goslings need food and protection. Therefore, he reasoned that the ones that followed their mother, who was constantly on the move in order to search for food and avoid predators, had a better chance of surviving. Moreover, the ability to recognize the members of their own species is crucial for finding a mating partner. Thus, over hundreds of generations, this behavior was favored by natural selection, eventually leading to the evolution of imprinting behavior. Did you know, for their immeasurable contribution to the field of ethology, Nikolaus Tinbergen, Konrad Lorenz and Karl von Frisch were awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1973. Tinbergen's studies on the behavior of male sticklebacks. Nikolaus Tinbergen, Fig. 1.9, frequently collaborated with Konrad Lorenz over many of his ethological experiments. One of his most famous experiments was performed in 1959. It was aimed at studying the courtship and aggression behaviors of male three-spin stickleback fish. Tinbergen observed that during their mating season, the ventral portion of the male's body turns red. Further, the male establishes a territory, builds a nest and shows a predictable series of behaviors when it encounters a female stickleback. The male performs a stereotypical zigzag dance with an aim to attract the females so that they would enter the male's nest and lay their eggs. On the other hand, the male is not so welcoming towards other male sticklebacks. In fact, it shows a different series of predictably aggressive behavior towards the other males. For example, it displays its spines to the intruder and performs jerky movements. Such instinctive and predictable series of species-specific behavior triggered by an environmental stimulus is known as a fixed action pattern, FAP. One of the characteristic features of FAP is that it is automatic and involuntary. Once started, the FAP is no longer dependent on its environmental stimulus, also called key stimulus or sign stimulus or releaser, and proceeds even if the stimulus is removed. Tinbergen discovered that the key stimulus for the male stickleback that triggers courtship behavior is the swollen belly of the female. On the other hand, the red belly of the other males is the key stimulus that triggers an aggressive response from the male defending its territory. Interestingly, Tinbergen found that even if he used a wooden model displaying swollen belly, the male showed courtship behavior towards it. On the other hand, a wooden model with red belly triggered an aggressive response. This experiment conclusively proved how different key stimuli can evoke different FAPs from an animal. 1.3 Innate and acquired, learned, behavior. Konrad Lorenz came up with one of the most popular ways to classify animal behavior. He proposed that animal behavior can be classified as innate or acquired, learned. Innate behavior is largely determined by the animal's genes. Environment has little influence on innate behavior. Therefore, such behavior is exhibited in response to a specific stimulus even in the absence of any prior experience. For example, humans show a knee-jerk reflex when a rubber hammer is used to tap the tendon below the kneecap. Acquired or learned behavior, on the other hand, is acquired by environmental conditioning. The genes of the animal play a lesser role while the environment plays a vital role in the development of acquired behaviors. Such behaviors are developed gradually as the animal grows up. Most of these behaviors are learned by observing and imitating the adult members of their species. Thus, the young animals of a species gradually figure out which behaviors will bring greater rewards and have greater survival value. For example, most young animals learn how to forage for food by observing their parents. Both innate and acquired behaviors have their own adaptive value. Innate behavior is instinctive and mostly independent of environmental conditioning. Consequently, innate behavior is largely error-proof and safer compared to acquired behavior. The latter is riskier because there is a chance that the animal may learn the wrong type of behavior. On the other hand, acquired behavior has its own advantages. It is dynamic and flexible. Therefore, it can be altered more easily in response to changes in the environmental conditions. 1.4 Methods for studying animal behavior. The most important thing to consider while studying animal behavior is the fact that different individuals of a species may show a great degree of variation in their behaviors. Therefore, any study involving animal behavior needs to be performed on many animals in order to reach a correct conclusion. Animal behavior studies involve two basic types of analyses: A. Observational studies, and B. Experimental studies. Observational studies of an animal's behavior involve the most humane and natural approaches since they entail observing the animal in its natural environment. Such studies, when performed over a sufficiently long duration, may provide an insight into the entire behavioral repertoire of the animal under natural circumstances. However, such experiments do not provide information as to what would an animal do when its natural environment undergoes any changes. Under such circumstances, experimental studies may prove more useful. These studies involve manipulation of an animal's environment to varying degrees depending upon the nature of the experiment. Thus, experimental studies usually employ either of the two basic types of tests: preference tests and motivation tests. Preference tests reveal the animal's priorities and preferences by giving the animal a choice between two options. This is done by training an animal to use a forked maze at either ends of which the animal is provided with an option. Preference tests are a very elegant way to determine the animal's choice or preference. By making an animal choose between two good options like food and mate under changing circumstances, we can determine the animal's priorities in specific scenarios. Similarly, performing the test using two bad options can also be very informative. The second type of experimental studies, called the motivation tests, help us determine just how far an animal would go to display a specific behavior. Motivation tests involve training the animal in a Skinner box to perform a task such as pressing a lever in order to earn a reward. The reward could be something that allows the animal to perform a certain essential behavior, for example, drinking or eating. Such training is known as operant conditioning. The more motivation the animal has towards receiving a reward, the more cost it will be willing to pay to attain it. For example, if an animal is not very hungry, it may not be inclined to press a heavy lever to receive food. However, an animal that has been starved for some time would be very motivated to eat and hence would be willing to press the heavy lever in order to eat. In fact, an animal that has been starved for an even longer period of time would be willing to press the heavy lever more times and or with increased frequency in a bid to attain food. Thus, motivation tests can be used to quantify an animal's inclination or, in extreme cases, its desperation towards displaying a particular behavior. Motivation is the internal drive within an animal to exhibit a specific behavior. Fig. 1.10, a sample template for an animal's ethogram. Note that the ethograms columns can be modified based on the nature of the experiment. In this ethogram, the details about the observer, date, time, species of the animal, etc., are at the top of the table, highlighted in gray. The lower portion with white background is for recording the animal's behavioral patterns. Look at the screen. Once an ethologist has collected the data regarding the animal's behavior, she needs to prepare a formal inventory of the same. Such systematic inventories that carry descriptions of the defined and discrete behaviors that the test animal exhibits are known as ethograms. Fig. 1.10. Ethograms may also be used to record the duration, frequency and intensity of the animal's behavior. This data can be used to calculate the time budget of the animal, which in turn indicates how much time per day is devoted by the animal for performing each type of behavior being studied. 1.5 Objectives of animal behavior. The behaviors exhibited by an animal have adaptive value, i.e., they benefit the animal. Thus, each type of behavior serves at least one objective. The short-term objectives of different behaviors may be varied. However, the ultimate objective of all the behavioral traits of an animal is to increase its fitness by increasing the probability of its survival and or reproduction. For example, many behaviors such as foraging for food, eating, drinking and escaping predators are essential for the animal's survival. On the other hand, some behaviors like mating displays and parental care increase in animals' reproductive fitness. Even the seemingly expensive behaviors that may be deemed to be too costly for the animal have adaptive value. The benefits of such behaviors may not be quite so obvious on a superficial level. However, a closer scrutiny would reveal the ultimate objective. For example, providing parental care and nurturing the young ones uses up a lot of the parent's energy and resources. This may seem like reducing the animal's fitness for producing more offspring. However, parental care increases the animal's fitness by ensuring the survival of the offspring upon which the parent has already spent a lot of energy and resources. Experiments have shown that without parental care most of the offspring die. From an evolutionary standpoint, this renders the entire effort of producing the offspring worthless, since the offspring's early death means that their parents' genes will not be transmitted to the next generation. Thus, parental care has adaptive value. Another example of a seemingly expensive behavior is the long-distance migration shown by animals, either alone or in large groups. This process is energy-consuming, and during the migration, the animal is vulnerable with no food and shelter to count upon. However, once it reaches the warmer climate, The food is plentiful and thus long-distance migration also has adaptive value and increases the overall fitness of the animal undertaking it. 1.6 Proximate and Ultimate Causes of Animal Behavior. In his paper titled, On the Aims and Methods of Ethology, Nicholas Tinbergen, 1963, proposed that while studying a particular behavior of an animal, 4 salient questions should be asked and answered in a quest to develop a clear understanding regarding the behavior. These questions pertain to the mechanism, development, survival value, function, and phylogeny, evolutionary history, of the behavior. The first two questions focus on the immediate causes, which are known as the proximate causes of behavior. These seek answers to questions such as how the animal performs the behavior and at what stage in its ontogeny, developmental history, does the animal develop the machinery required to do so. Thus, the proximate causes of a particular behavior include I. Mechanism, i.e., the physiological machinery involved in the perception of the stimuli as well as the animal's reactions to those stimuli. It provides a mechanistic explanation of how the behavior happens. Understanding the mechanism of a behavior involves an insight into the sensory systems, effector organs, hormonal levels, genes, etc., which are involved in the display of the behavior. E. Development, i.e., the developmental stage-specific changes leading to the development or modification of the behavior. These also include explanations regarding learned behavior. On the other hand, Tinbergen's last two questions focus on the forces that have been involved in the evolution of the behavior, also known as the ultimate causes of behavior. These seek answers to questions such as why the animal performs a behavior and how the behavior evolved in the first place. Thus, the ultimate causes of a particular behavior include I. Function, i.e., the benefit that the behavior offers, especially with respect to the survival and reproductive fitness of the animal. E. Phylogeny, i.e., the evolutionary history of the behavior, with respect to whether the behavior was inherited from an ancestor. It also includes other evolutionary details such as whether the behavior has changed during the course of evolution and or whether it evolved in response to a particular selection pressure. Let us take an example of sleep to better appreciate the concept of proximate and ultimate causes of behavior. The proximate causes of sleep include all the explanations pertaining to its mechanism and development. The main mechanisms responsible for sleep include anterior hypothalamus, ion channels, neurotransmitters, hormones, cytokines, genes, circadian rhythm, etc. Looking into its development, we find that sleep is observed in all stages during the animal's life. However, there are some developmental stage-specific variations in the sleep duration as well as the composition of the sleep cycles. The ultimate causes of sleep include all the explanations pertaining to the function and evolution of sleep. The main functions of sleep are energy conservation, synaptic optimization, modulation of immune responses, cognition, psychological well-being, avoiding danger, etc. Looking into its evolution, we find that sleep has deep evolutionary roots. It has been reported to occur in one form or another in worms, e.g., Sonorhabditis elegans, flies, e.g., Drosophila melanogaster, fish, birds and humans. Having discussed the ultimate causes of evolution, let us try to understand how the behavior of an animal evolves. The first thing that we must bear in mind is that evolution acts only on the traits that show variation. Now, if the variation in a heritable trait shows a positive correlation with the animal's fitness, then natural selection comes into play. Fig. 1.11. The trait values that confer more fitness to the animal are favored by natural selection. This means that the animals who show these trait values would leave more offspring in the next generation. Over many generations, this process of selection leads to adaptive evolution. The behavioral traits of the animal also undergo the same process of adaptive evolution. Those behavioral traits that confer increased fitness to the animal are favored by natural selection. Thus, an animal's behavior is a result of millions of years of evolution. 1.7 Why do we study animal behavior? The study of animal behavior has many benefits such as Studying animal behavior makes it possible to understand animals' preferences. It can help us work out the optimum conditions for the animals in habitation. Such information could prove very useful for rearing animals in a zoological park. This may also help us make our pet animals comfortable. The field of economic zoology is full of examples that illustrate the fact that animals play a vital role in many human economic endeavors. Animal rearing techniques such as livestock farming, sericulture, apiculture, etc., provide livelihood to a lot of people. And in-depth knowledge about the feeding patterns, mating behavior, social interactions and disease response of these animals can prove economically beneficial to humans. An in-depth knowledge of animal behavior is very crucial while framing the wildlife conservation and animal protection laws to protect animals from cruelty. Studying animal behavior allows humans to know more about our own behavior. In this respect, animal models that show similar behavior as humans have been particularly helpful. Such models are also very useful while developing a treatment for certain behavioral and neurological problems such as depression and anxiety. Dogs, cats, and other domesticated animals have been employed successfully for providing animal-assisted therapy. Such therapy has proven to be especially beneficial for individuals that are socially isolated or are dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, autism, or mood disorders. The success of animal-assisted therapy is largely based on increased oxytocin levels in the human patients when they interact with animals. Ethology helps us elucidate the general principles involved in the mechanism, function, and evolution of behavior in response to changes in the environment. In this age of extensive climate change, ethology can help us prepare for the future challenges. 1.8 Summary. In this unit you have learned that animal behavior encompasses all the ways in which an animal reacts in response to changes in its external or internal conditions. Ethology receives input from a lot of scientific disciplines such as genetics, evolutionary biology, ecology, neurobiology, endocrinology, physiology, anatomy, population biology, developmental biology, sociobiology, etc. Animal behavior studies involve observational studies as well as experimental studies. Preference tests reveal the animal's priorities and preferences by giving the animal a choice between two options. Motivation tests can be used to quantify an animal's inclination or, in extreme cases, desperation towards displaying a particular behavior. Systematic inventories carrying descriptions of the defined and discrete behaviors that the test animal exhibits are known as ethograms. Animal behaviors can be classified as innate or acquired. Innate behaviors are exhibited in response to a specific stimulus even in the absence of any prior experience. Acquired or learned behaviors are acquired through environmental conditioning. The ultimate objective of all the behavioral traits of an animal is to increase its fitness by increasing the probability of its survival and/or reproduction. The proximate causes of behavior include all the explanations pertaining to its mechanism and development. The ultimate causes of behavior include all the explanations pertaining to its function and evolution. Besides being crucial for animal welfare, ethology has many applications that are beneficial for humans too. Thank you.